Good morning and welcome to Over the Target Live. I'm Lee Smith and we have a spectacular show today with AJ Rice, author of the new book, The Woking Dead. And AJ has the entire thing covered. He's got the history. He's got the sociology of what it looks like. We're going to talk about how the 2022 midterms appear to be a referendum on the culture of woke, everything from the climate change agenda to CRT and the trans mafia, as AJ calls them, and how these principles, initiatives are playing themselves out in real policy terms, and how Americans naturally, being a practical people, albeit dreamers, we are a practical people, and how we're rebelling against this. So we're going to go to AJ in just 1 second. I just want to remind you, though, if you are watching on Facebook or YouTube, don't, and watch us on Epoch TV. But at the 20-minute mark, if you are watching on Facebook or YouTube, we're going to jump over to Epoch TV, where you'll be able to watch the rest of the show, the entire show, the 40 minutes after we cut away. And you have to make the jump. You got to join us because AJ just has, again, there's so much to cover. And we're going to try to get in as much as we can. But you got to see the whole hour-long show and hear AJ going. So remember, I'll give you a little countdown at the 20-minute mark, but make the jump with us. And now, without further delay, ladies and gentlemen, my excellent Over the Target live viewing audience, I want to introduce to you AJ Rice.
Brother Lee, great to be here. You know, this is kind of like the multiverse where I'm usually the one getting you interviews, and here you are interviewing me.
Well, that's right. So look, we should talk about this a little bit, because you are a lot of people don't know this, but you, in many ways, you control the right wing media.
Tell them, Lee, don't tell them.
The right wing thought sphere. Look, you know everyone, and everyone knows you. So I just want to talk about that. You brought it up, so I just want to talk about that for a minute, and then not only praise you for your new book, but explain how it came about. Because again, you are the guy behind the scenes all the time, just doing fantastic. I just have to step out for a second and just say AJ does amazing work for AJ truly is the guy behind so many successful writers and radio shows, TV personalities. So really, it's a huge thrill to have you here. And I'm glad that our audience gets to see someone who really is so influential and using your influence for such good things. So how did you decide to say, well, look, I've done this, so now it's time, I'm going to write a book. I have been thinking about this stuff for a while, so time to sit down and write a book.
Well, no, I appreciate that. Look, no one wants a coach who hasn't played the game. So one of the few things that I've not experienced, even though I've put thousands of people through it myself by being their PR agent or even their executive producer, is to sort of run this gauntlet myself. I mean, the country needs saving. I started putting the book together in 2018. So, you know, it wasn't written yesterday, but I did it in a way that I felt that the themes of the last 5 or 6 years, even going back to the second Obama administration, that those themes would be evergreen and they would hold up. Because I saw, you know, the woke, you know, crowd was getting crazier. And we can discuss a couple reasons why. But just a little background on me. I was basically plucked from the river by Laura Ingraham and Monica Crowley. They're like my surrogate sisters. I was the executive producer for both of them, you know, from basically 2005 all the way through 2013. And right around then, I started doing more media, you know, training and PR and communications. I helped John Solomon launch a show. I helped Glenn Beck start the Blaze Radio Network. Well, my first couple hosts that I was working with then were Buck Sexton and Chris Salcedo, and they've gone on, and they're friends. So, you know, early on, Dan Bongino, no one knew who he was. I helped on his first book. You know, and through the years, you know, I've done Don Jr.'s books, Janine's, I've done yours, Janine Pirro, Victor Davis Hanson. I did Krauthammer's book after he passed. and more recently, Peter Navarro, Naomi Wolf, and Paul Manafort. So, and Ben Carson. So look, I try to build the MAGA Avengers team where I'm, Nick Fury. I just need the eye patch. But we got to take back the country. And, the coming of Trump, who I call the vaccine America needed, the real vaccine America needed. Look, Obama and Hillary were planning 16 years of lead from behind. So 16 years of crushing the middle class, 16 years of rewriting American history, 16 years of, basically throwing some brushback pitches at Western civilization, and Trump stopped it. Trump, like other people that have come along, like, Andrew Jackson and Lincoln and a few others, he basically plugged the dam for 4 years and messed up their blueprint. But look, we've always had political correctness, right? We've always had the nanny state. They want to take the cigar out of your mouth. Michael Bloomberg is going to take your big gulp and your salt shaker. Michelle Obama is going to starve the children of America with her Let's Move school lunch program, right? Where they're eating broccoli derivative tater tots. We've always had that. And political correctness spins up every decade or so. I think the last time we saw them was when Murphy Brown showed up and told us all how to think and talk and act, and the pantsuit brigades of the 90s. But this is different. Political correctness we can fight, we can have some fun with. Wokeism is kind of like Baskin and Robbins, where there's 30 plus flavors. And at the core of it, it's cultural Marxism. And out of that comes the MeToo movement, Antifa, Occupy Wall Street, Black Lives Matter, cancel culture, 1619 Project. That all sort of stems from that. But if the audience needs to know where this came from, it really, you have to get in the Wayback Machine and go back to pre-World War I, where, Marxism shows up here in the early 20th century, and they're looking around and they see that we have a vibrant middle class, that we have blue-collar workers, and, they're earning a living. They probably just got off boats from some nightmare. They could be Irish, Polish, Jewish,
Italian. Yeah. Right.
So they're here, they're working their rear ends off. And a lot of them fought in the Spanish-American War. Some of them were about to fight in World War I. There are people here at that time, maybe they're 50 or 60, they might have fought in the Civil War. And the Marxists look around, and it dawns on them, wow, we're not going to get a workers' revolt here. We're not going to get a bunch of plumbers and longshoremen and lumberjacks to overthrow the government. We need different foot soldiers. We need to do the long march through the institutions. So where do they look? And these villains will sound familiar to this audience. They go into the silent picture industry. They go into Broadway. They go into entertainment, early radio. They go into the newspaper business. They, get into the government schools. So from kindergarten all the way up to law schools. Obviously the humanities departments have always been nuts. But, everything from Harvard to William and Mary, which are some of our oldest schools, they even infiltrate Georgetown, which is the first sort of Catholic university. And then they find home in the Democrat Party of Margaret Sanger and Woodrow Wilson. So if you fast forward 100 years, these are the same people we're fighting today. The difference is they have big tech. They have the digital brown shirts, right? So these are the people that pick and choose winners and losers. These are the people that want to deplatform, demonetize, shadow ban, and they can move at the speed of light. So cultural Marxists are held together by big tech. It's the cartilage that holds them together. It's like their aircraft carrier. It helps them project power. It's their midair refueling tanker. I mean, that's what they are. And look, 100 years ago, if you wanted to, ban the Bible or censor Graham Greene or George Orwell or Hemingway or Faulkner or whoever, Mark Twain, that was hard to do. You had printing presses going all over the place. You couldn't do it. Whereas today, if you want to take the president of the United States off of Twitter, if you want to bang, Parler offline and ban people from Facebook and LinkedIn of all places. I've been tossed off of LinkedIn for sharing interviews by Naomi Wolf and Gregory Wrightstone, one on global warming, one on vaccines. So, look, we always knew this was not just going to be about tearing down statues. They want to control us. So the Woking Dead wants to put us through what I call this sort of authoritarian dress rehearsal. And the main event is on the horizon. We need to be prepared.
What, AJ? This is a fantastic abbreviated history, very helpful. And you're saying so much. I want to pick so much out of there. But let me just ask you, since you're ending with this, the main event. What's the main event?
Well, at some point, some of these people, they get physical. So the main event for Rand Paul was his neighbor coming over and breaking his ribs. The main event for Steve Scalise was people showing up at a baseball, Bernie Sanders kooks showing up at a baseball game, shooting the place up. Somebody showed up at Kavanaugh's house because they put his address out. Somebody jumped on stage and tried to stab Dave Chappelle. Someone jumped on stage and tried to stab Lee Zeldin, and then did stab Salman Rushdie, who's now got one eye and nerve damage. Mm-hmm. So look, totalitarian cancel culture doesn't always have to come from the left. It can come from radical Islamic terror. I mean, Salman Rushdie was a 30-year canceling in the making, where he writes a book about the mullahs, and it's called The Satanic Verses, 30 years ago, and they put a fatwa out on him. And look, the left has issued a fatwa against Western civilization, against the middle class. That's what they're doing. So, like, when a guy tries to jump on stage and stab Dave Chappelle because he's telling, LGBTQ jokes, to me, Lee, it's no different than the Taliban firing RPGs at those Buddhist statues. It's about removing all of this, because I know, they weren't going to stop with Robert E. Lee and his horse, Traveler. Once there were Confederate generals were gone, the Union generals were next. Then the War of 1812 generals and Teddy Roosevelt and Columbus and Churchill. They're taking statues of you down, I heard. So they were never going to stop.
Wait, what? Wait, now they've got to be stopped. That's too much.
Sure.
Well, look. So when you say main event, are you talking about? Right, because we talk about this in a multi-layered, multi-level campaign against America. Right, you're talking about big tech. We talk about the different things that are happening in the cultural sphere, but you're saying that there's an actual. If we worked at the Pentagon, I guess we'd be saying there's an actual kinetic program as well. You mean that that the violence, the violence will increase. It'll get worse and worse. There'll be more violence on the streets.
I'll tell you right now, Republicans take back the House and Senate. The squad is going to be leading battalions through the halls of Congress. They're going to be sneaking their people in on Jim Jordan. They're going to be sneaking their people in everywhere. They're going to do this. Okay. It's not just going to be Medea Benjamin and Code Pink. It's going to be Antifa, BLM, whatever other, fascist shock troops Soros wants to pay for. I mean, look, the Woking Dead are zombies. They're eating at everything. Our sports, our entertainment, our public schools. They're termites. They're buried in. And, they take an inch one day, they take a mile. They take an inch, they take a mile. I mean, look, they raided the president's home. And they wanted to sit, look, the government was digging around in Melania's underwear drawer. This is how insane this has gotten. And when they do that, they want to see who pops their head up. Well, Smith, they pop their head up. Rice pop. Let's put their name on a list. So they're digging, and they do this. They're trying to see what our pain threshold is, right? How much can they take from us incrementally through totalitarianism? I mean, that's what this is. You got a medical tyranny they hit us with, right? With the, shutting down the country and put a diaper on your face, and you can't say go to grandma.
Very effective.
You can't go to the NCAA tournament. You can't go to graduation or prom. And then obviously the cultural tyranny, while we're locked down, they're slow pumping that into us. So whether it's the NBA or Disney,
Netflix,
they're trying to
whatever garbage.
And that's wokeness. And now you've got the reanimated corpse in the White House, the leader of the Woking Dead. We've got a financial tyranny. So we've got a triple tyranny happening. And the American people, they've had it. You saw it in Virginia with Glenn Youngkin. You saw Miami-Dade County flip from blue to red. So you call it a tsunami, a wave, whatever it is. The regular people of this country, regardless of party, have had it. They're getting soaked by this president and by this government. And they're coming. The one thing they did do, without going down, the election integrity, interview, which is for another day. And my book's not really about that, but I will tell you, we got 75 million poll watchers coming, and they're going to be videotaping everything everyone's doing. So that's what they created. I hope they're happy. No. Everybody that voted for Trump is going to be on guard, watching everything on election day.
Yeah, that's a good thing. The more eyes on this, the more vigilance, the better. Even though there are many things, many underhanded things that people can do off center stage. Look, let me ask you, I think this is an important thing for people to try to get a grasp on. How many zombies are there? By which I mean, are we talking about the country is split down the middle between normal Americans and zombies, or the country is split down the middle between, or not split down the middle, the country is split between normal people and zombies, but the zombies are a very small percentage of the population. But given their influence in the media, given their commitment to their ideas, that they're very influential and they can pull over a lot of normal people their way. That's what I mean. Like, how big is the zombie contingent?
It's the
because it's very different. If we're talking, if we're talking about 5 million people, that's very different than talking about 80 million people, right? The 80 million people who are said to have voted for Joe Biden, right? That's a big difference. 81 million.
I don't think it's all that. No, I don't think it's all that. It's a tyranny of the minority. This is how Youngkin was able to swing, 11 percentage points in Virginia. I mean, there was some, and we can do a whole show on why some of these people were turned off at the last minute for really stylistic reasons of Trump. I call them the pumpkin spice mafia, the pumpkin spice brigade. They're on their Pelotons. They're in Northern Virginia. They're riding around in their Audis, and they just couldn't handle the mean tweets. So they wanted to go back to normalcy with Biden, except boom, American meat puppet. Biden's not in newsflash. He's not in control. Klain and Rice, no relation there. They're in control. And the sort of woke middle management at the White House. So, no, I don't think it's everyone. And that's my point, is that have no fear. Regular people, I mean, look, Lee, we do this for a living. We're in the mix, we're writing, we're doing interviews. Regular people have stopped recently and said, I cannot take this anymore. It's 80%, it's 90%. I'm talking, and a lot of them are Democrats. Because look, they don't want to be told black people are all this and white people are all that, and the country was founded by, the Klan, and I'm going to let, Steve and Gary into the women's locker room, and my daughter is playing softball and there's a guy pitching to her. So they don't want any of this. So I mean, look, I saw a stat recently that the number of trans people in a country of 340 million is like 1.5%. I mean, that's no one. That's no one.
That's still surprisingly high. I assume it's
well, fine, but I mean, I'm more. I'm more likely to meet Harry Potter or go to Middle Earth to fight Sauron in the Lord of the Rings than I am to. I mean, so that tells me this.
I grew up in New York in the 60s and 70s, like which and I'll tell you, the amount of transvestites I saw walking 3rd and 4th Avenue, that was the extent of it. I don't think it's much more. But yeah. AJ, hold on, we got so much more to cover. It's 20 minutes in. We're making the jump. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, you got to come back and join us. Watch us on Epoch TV exclusively. We'll see you very shortly. Make the jump with us. We're going to pick it up with AJ right when we get back. Come join us.
It sounds like political suicide. How did the Democrats get to this point?
Joe Biden on the campaign trail said he was going to target the fossil fuel industry, and that's what happened.
If you look at inflation, it's currently at a 40-year high. It's at its highest since the Carter presidency.
Pro-life activists who have not only been arrested, but they've had FBI agents show up at their home drawing weapons on them and their family members. That doesn't win elections. But this is another mistake the Democrats made.
What can we expect if Republicans take the House and the Senate?
Investigation after investigation after investigation. Good move, good call. Way to make the GR back with AJ Rice. AJ has got some great stuff. And if you guys, if our producers can show the cover of AJ's awesome book when you get a chance, because you really got to go out there and read it. I see it, but thank you. The Woking Dead, How Society's Vogue Virus Destroys Our Culture. And you can